Good afternoon, everybody. So first of all, just wanted to, again, thank my friend Sal. Where's Sal? Where did he go? There he is. Sal, just thank you again for the invitation to be here with all of you. Couldn't be happier. Couldn't be happier. I've had a chance just to kind of connect with so many different people, meeting some of our principals throughout New York City public schools, which, by the way, I've done my best to start to try to refrain from calling our schools New York City Department of Education. I've been referring to it more and more as New York City Public Schools. When you hear Department of Education, it sounds like a bureaucracy. It sounds like a machine. And I think all across the country, everyone else refers to theirs as Chicago Public Schools, Atlanta Public Schools, Houston Public Schools. But in New York, we say Department of Education, this monster bureaucracy. So language matters. And so just keep that in mind. We're just starting to try to plant some seeds in doing that. Kelly, I want to thank you so much for being such a wonderful host. Very much appreciate you and all that you have done to put this conference together and to make me feel so at home since I've gotten here. So I appreciate you and thank you very, very much. And Maxine and Ken, again, I am going to where are they? Where's Maxine? There they are. I'm going to wear my pin proudly. So I just want you to know that. Because it's a reminder. It's a reminder of the responsibility that I have as well in terms of what this work means, not only today, but for the future of all of our young people, right? And the Sussman brothers, who I had a chance just a little while ago to really begin to get to know, and going to have them come in and meet with my team at Tweed, so we'll get a chance to really explore all of these different partnerships that you have and people who you're also representing with amazing work that you're doing. And so I salute you for that, and I'm looking forward to engaging in a real relationship going forward. So thank you to all of you. So the question that I have to open up to you today is, first of all, why do our kids go to school in the first place? So it's not a rhetorical question. Just take 60 seconds and just, with your neighbor, whoever's sitting near you, why do we do this thing called school in the first place? Just take 60 seconds. What's the purpose? Why do we do it? What are we hoping to achieve? What's the goal? Thirty seconds. Fifteen seconds. Five seconds. Thank you. Just two responses. Anybody that wants to say a response. Yes, Ken? Learning how to learn. Okay. Anybody else?
I say they began because they're required to attend, right?
Right.
They go because there is a gathering, a sameness, a oneness. They make friends. They are interested.
Absolutely. If we went to every table in the room, we might get a different answer from every table. It's not that the answer is so simplistic, but it is broad, it is wide-ranging, but it ought not be so broad. And I think that's part of the reason why we have so many issues that we have all across America as it relates to education. Kids who play sports are very clear about what the goal is, right? We're trying to win that trophy. We're trying to win the championship. We're trying to win the game. And because the goal is super clear, all the steps that they have to go through to achieve that goal, they are prepared to put in that time, effort, and that energy because they're very clear about why they are doing this. If you're playing football or basketball and you have to do those wind sprints and suicides, as they call them, they're tough. But you will do it because you're clear. It's going to make you better. It's going to make you stronger. It's going to help prepare you more to ultimately achieve that goal that you are very clear about. And all of your teammates are very clear about. And we recognize that you can't be a one-man band. You got to work together. Teamwork makes the dream work. We have to work together in order to achieve the goal. In public education all across America, the goal is not clear. The goal can be as wide-ranging as all 30 tables in this room. And that is unacceptable. Because if you've got a range that is that broad, there are a whole lot of lanes that'll get you there. We have to create a greater level of clarity around why we have our children engaging in the school experience in the first place. And I would suggest to you that the reasons are not necessarily the same as they were 50 years ago. The world has not only changed, but it is changing at a more rapid pace than it has ever done in our history. And so what does that mean? That means we as educators have to make the adjustments to prepare our young people for a brand new world. Not a new world that is just coming, a new world that is already here. In far too many classrooms across America, you could close your eyes and it might as well be 1950. Except you have a smart board. But a lot of the strategies and the things that we do still remain the same. Now, there's a lot of good stuff that we've done, even 50 years ago, which should remain. But we as a nation of educators have to step up our game in order to more fully prepare our kids for this 21st century economy. We constructed a K-12 system that doesn't necessarily tap into our children's natural curiosity about the world around them. They come to us fully ready, like a sponge. Has nothing to do with their demographic background, although we know there's a lot of research that talks about readiness for school. And I get that. And how many words they've been exposed to, and the kind of environment that they've been in. I get all of that. I was an elementary school teacher. And I taught 4th grade for a number of years. And we would have so many kids who would show up to us in the 4th grade and they were not ready. And who did the 4th grade teachers blame? 3rd grade teachers blamed who? 2nd grade blamed who? 1st grade teachers blamed who? And the kindergarten teachers said, it wasn't my fault that they didn't know their numbers and the colors. Who did they blame? So we all know it. It's a narrative that plays out all across the nation. But accepting a responsibility that says we as educators will get them where they need to go. Here's the problem. Even as we talk about STEM, far too many of our educators themselves have no idea what the 21st century economy even looks like. When we say in every school across America, we're preparing our kids for the future. No, we're not. For far too many of us, we're still just doing school. What I refer to as just the routinization of going to school. That's not good enough. There's a difference between schooling and educating. Very distinct set of experiences that have to happen which shape what a real educational experience should really look like and feel like for students and for teachers. Majority of teachers across America have never stepped into a place like Google or Microsoft. They've never been around an astronaut or people in STEM careers. They may read a little bit about it in a book or a lesson plan that they've helped to develop, but to actually have a real experience where they understand what this is like, far too many of us as adults and educators, we don't have the experience ourselves. So we rely upon a vendor, a company, somebody to prepare lesson plans, give us some books, something to kind of plug the gap. What's needed in America is a very new set of professional development for educators. For educators to create the aha moment for themselves, to understand what we like to refer to, right, as the real world looks like. Because if you've been a student who went to college, you love teaching, and you came out of college and you love kids and you became a teacher, but if your whole career has only been within the four walls of the classroom, it's limited by definition. You need a greater level of exposure. We talk about creating internships for kids. Our educators need internships. And that's not, I don't mean it even as a joke. It's a greater level of exposure. So all of the workshops that you've been going through and you've been hearing from all of these wonderful and phenomenal people, and we look at it through the lens of what we could be doing for our kids, we should be looking at it through the lens of how do you as educators build your own capacity to understand much more deeply what the world looks like that we say that we are preparing our kids for. When we say that we are lifelong learners, that has to be more than words. That has to be a set of experiences that you are intentional about making happen for yourself, because it won't necessarily fall into your lap. To push yourselves, to grow, to continue to learn and expand and create your own aha moments, which you can then bring back for your kids. We have to create a system that fosters innovation and intellectual curiosity. That's what STEM is. STEM ought not be a program, or when you leave here today, you got some cards from some folks who you're looking to check the box on your STEM work. STEM is a vehicle to get you where we're ultimately trying to get. That's why I said if we're not clear about where we are ultimately trying to go, well, there are all kinds of lanes that will take you there. You can just go off and have at it, and you'll be fine, because you're not really leading anywhere clearly. If it's ultimately about helping our young people to even become economically prosperous, it's not enough to just say go to school for the sake of going to school. We want everybody to learn for the sake of learning. But we also need it to have a more pragmatic goal at the end as well. Even if you're going to college. You're going to college or you're not going to college. Ultimately, you're still trying to get somewhere. And that somewhere has to be defined so that your steps are ordered as we go. We have so many smart, committed educators in New York City and Atlanta and all around this country. But being smart and being committed is not enough if what you are trying to achieve is not clear and connected from one grade to the next. That's the work that I'm trying to build in New York. We're just getting started. And the people that I have visited at schools all around the city, I'm always blown away at just how tremendously talented the people are. But yet it's a system that is broken. It's 65% of black and brown children never achieve proficiency in our New York City public schools. Think about that. We have a $38 billion annual budget. And yet 65% of black and brown children never achieve proficiency. That's a betrayal as far as I'm concerned. But it's not that we don't have good, smart, committed people. We haven't connected the dots. And the closer I've been looking, I'm seeing more and more of the reasons why. STEM to me, and the reason why I came here today just to share a few words with you, was because I wanted us to walk away from here very clear. STEM is a mechanism. Technology, math, science, the connection of all of those pieces, it's a framework to ultimately help us to get where we're trying to get to. Now, there's some things that, on its face, for me, a part of the reason everybody should be engaged in a STEM approach. One, it's fun. Remember that? The reason why so many brilliant young educators even come into education, because they love school and they love young people. And then we have brought them into a system in too many places, not everywhere, but in too many places, where we almost like suck the life out of them. From the kids as well as the adults. We've taken all the fun and the joy and the passion in teaching and learning. Because over the last 25 years, we got pulled into this framework of everything that we do and everything that we measure is purely based upon standardized exams. If it's not measured in a standardized exam, it doesn't matter. That is what's taken us off course from really providing a set of robust experiences for all of our kids. And we have to fight back. We have to fight back at the state level, because I've got news for you. Even the folks at the state level recognize this. They're just not entirely sure what to do with it. See, project-based learning, things where kids are really able to like be really curious, put their hands on stuff, get it wrong time after time after time before they get it right. Those are things that are hard to measure on an exam. And so at a state level, they struggle with how do you scale that and measure it with fidelity? So in the absence of being able to figure it out, we take the lazy way out. Just give them an exam. And far too many principals and educators say, they're only measuring me based on the exam. They're not measuring my value as a principal or superintendent, on if the kids are engaged in joyfulness. We talked about the Sussman brothers. He talked about mindfulness. Right? Mindfulness centers you as a human being. We talk about traumatic experiences that our kids go through. Mindfulness is a practice that young people can take with them for the rest of their lives. That in the face of trauma, right? Because news alert, a lot of our kids suffered trauma well before COVID. In the face of trauma, how do you respond? And many children and young people respond by lashing out violently to hurt others or to otherwise hurt themselves, because they've not been taught the skills that are necessary of how to center yourself. That's why mindfulness is so critically important. But guess what? Mindfulness is hard to measure on a standardized exam. So therefore, at a state level, doesn't matter. That's why a lot of schools will say, we don't have time for it. So we're missing all of the important components. We know what they are. We've got to figure out a different way in which we're going to assess all of our young people for real value of a true education. And I believe that we can merge the two. I do believe that we can, in fact, find the different kinds of assessments that will ultimately help us to get where we need to go. So that everybody's not just off doing their own thing, saying, hey, we're having fun. But we want them to learn. We want them to grow. And I think that we can do it. I was at Rikers Island recently, and I talking to a group of young men, about a half dozen of them, and I said to them, tell me your story. How did you wind up here? And they shared with me the fact that they were just so bored with school, right? And they stopped going to school as they got older and everything else. And yet they were on Rikers Island like doing a trade. And HVAC and plumbing and all kind of stuff that they were learning, and they were fully engaged. And one of the young men put his hand up. He said, if I was doing this kind of stuff in school, I would have gone to school every day. And you start to realize, like, so why weren't we? Because we don't have time for that. Because we have to go to school. We have to do regular school stuff that doesn't necessarily have enough relevance to the kids' lives. Which is another reason why I talk about the importance of STEM and STEM education, is because it's relevant. It connects to the real world. This is real stuff that's going on. When you see these billionaires flying into outer space, think about all the lessons and ways in which we can connect to that. And biotechnology and climate change that's happening around us. This planet is heading in the wrong direction because of bad decisions that we as a population of human beings continue to make. And the only thing that's going to save us are the young people that we are educating. They're going to have to figure out how to get us out of the mess that we have gotten them into. And it's never too early to get them started. When I was outside and I was speaking with one of the vendors, and she's taking me through this whole process that you can work on with elementary school kids around hurricanes and tornadoes and how all of that stuff actually happens. Well, guess what? In the coming years, everybody, we're going to see more and more hurricanes and tornadoes and bad weather. This is real stuff. And that's why STEM education is so critically important. This is not play around on the margin stuff. This is save our lives stuff. We ought to be engaged in this with everything that we possibly have. It's economically consequential. It's another reason why STEM is so critically important. The goal for our kids is to become economically prosperous as well, not just going to school for school's sake. I want to get them off mommy and daddy's payroll. They need to learn how to do something real. I've been talking to corporate leaders all across New York City, and they've said, we've got thousands of jobs that are available, but you're producing kids that don't know how to do anything. But we hand them this high school diploma. We celebrate them in their cap and gown. Dr. Dukes, they don't know anything about civic engagement. They couldn't tell you the difference between a city councilman, Danique, or a state assemblyman or a congressperson. But they got their diploma. They don't know how to activate in this democracy. The vast majority of Americans never cast a vote in their lives. Shame on us. That's because we don't develop that muscle, K to 12. Every school across America should have student government. Should have elections going on all year. Every year you should have elections going on, which build their muscle for understanding how they have to pay attention to what's going on around them. So that when they graduate from high school, it's not a question of if they vote. They're lined up, they're on fire to go and vote. They've been voting since kindergarten. But if you don't develop that, they come out as cynical Americans and join the rest of the group. We have to do better, and we can. STEM employment in the United States continues, and you heard this. It continues to grow at a faster pace than employment in all other occupations. Whether it's healthcare, whatever it is, the jobs are there. They're screaming for our young people. And we're not preparing them, so there's a total disconnect that's happening. And the fourth and final one I'll tell you is that it fosters collaboration and teamwork. Skills that are necessary for industry. You don't work in silos. You go to Microsoft, nobody's sitting in rows and desks. They sit around round tables. They plan, they problem solve. There's a problem that they have to resolve, and they figure out how we work together as a team. Now, in our educational system, there are times when we do have to be in silos, where you've got to really make sure you hunker down and you understand some key components of math and science and other subjects. I get it. But very quickly, you then have to put the kids in a position where they can solve problems and they get to work together. Sitting in rows all day, every day. High school, 45 minutes, bell rings, you go to the next class to sit in rows for 45 minutes again. It's the antithesis of what youth development is all about. We have all the wrong systems in place. So we're able to get to a certain level, and that's where we sit. We don't send our kids out to play. I just met with the Minister of Education 2 days ago from Finland. And she even came to visit one of the summer school sites with me for our Summer Rising program. And the first question she said was, when do the kids go out to play? And for many of our schools, that's a foreign term. They have one of the top education systems in the world. And play is built into the system because they recognize natural human development is movement. Our bodies were designed to move. That's why STEM is so important. It's the intellectual curiosity. It's the figuring things out. It's working together. It's fun. It's exciting. And then it's teachers as facilitators, managers, right? All the good stuff that every one of us in this room knows is what good education is all about. We know it, but then we go back into systems that are so structured that work against everything that we know is meant for the good. I went to Rutgers University, and for my first couple years, I was an engineering major. How much time we have? 1 minute? We okay? I got about another hour and a half then. Okay. You better be careful. I went to Rutgers University, and I was an engineering major for 2 years. Why? Because when I was in high school, I was a very good math and science student. I took advanced placement calculus. I took physics. I took all of the top stuff that the school had to offer. And folks told me, you could make a lot of money as an engineer. I didn't really know what engineers did, but I heard you could make a whole bunch of money, and I said, sign me up. And I went to Rutgers and did miserably because, first of all, I should have never been doing that. I didn't want to build. I said I was going to be a computer engineer. I don't want to build computers. So you have to know what it is that you're focused on, why it's important. But here's the interesting thing. While I was a very good math student, I didn't understand math at the level that you need to understand it to sustain. I just in my mind, I was built naturally. I was hardwired to understand how to move numbers around and figure out formulas. But ask me what this stuff really meant. I didn't know. And I certainly wasn't taught. It was a schooling process. It was not a process of true education where you understand why you are doing what you're doing and how this stuff connects to the real world. That I didn't know. X to the third power plus y squared, right? I just knew how to bounce numbers around and move it around. But what does that stuff really mean? That's important. But we also don't have enough of our educators who understand what it means deeply enough either. So there are different ways in which we're going to have to address it, and I believe that we can use technology to actually help to close some of that gap. So that if a school has a teacher who's not a great math teacher, the kids shouldn't have to suffer. There are ways for us and things that we can do. Again, that's why STEM is so critically important. So I just simply want to wrap up by telling you that I've got 4 pillars that I'm very focused on in New York. Certainly, it all is about engaging parents and families and community together with us in this process. It's about health and wellness and how that really relates to everything that we do in our schools. That's where the mindfulness piece is so critically important, because if kids are not, if you're not of sound mind, body, and spirit, I can't teach you at the level that you need to be taught. So I've got to help you to be whole, right? And so that's critically important. And then there's this notion of reimagining the educational experience. That's where the STEM stuff comes in. We're coming off of this pandemic, and everybody's been saying across America, we've got to do school differently. Haven't everybody been saying that? But unless there's something intentional done, we go right back to what we had always done. STEM becomes a vehicle that can stand in the gap for a reimagined educational experience that can be fun, it can be exciting, it can be dynamic. Kids that disengage from school, particularly as they get older, there's one word that they will tell you all the time: I stopped being engaged because school was... See, that's it. We all intuitive. We all know it. We didn't say 100 different things. We all said boring. We know it. But yet we will go back to our schools and our district and continue a system that in many ways we know does not work at the highest level. And even in your best schools that you have in your districts, you have a lot of kids who've perfected the art of schooling. So they can give you the grades, they can give you the stuff that you're looking for, but again, ask them how this connects to their lives. Very few of them can make any connection to that. They don't know. They're just being compliant. Some kids are better at being compliant than others. We ought to design a set of schools and a set of school experiences that are not predicated upon people being compliant, but being energized. Imagine every kid in America waking up every day and they can't wait to get to school because of all of the energy and the excitement that's going to be unleashed and all the new things that they're going to learn. Imagine that if there was interdisciplinary projects that they were working on every day. Imagine the kind of young people that we would produce. This STEM workshop, this STEM conference that you're having here can be the basis for a reimagined experience. And there's great work that is happening in many places that we ought to learn from, which goes to my fourth pillar, which is to scale, sustain, and restore what works. There is a lot of good stuff that's already going on. And we don't do a good job in education of promoting the great things that are happening. So there's a narrative that nothing good is happening. All we do is the negative. So you all excuse me for being so negative throughout this whole presentation. But there are wonderful, amazing things that are happening in our schools. You know that every single day. We have to lift that up. We have to share it across schools, across districts, across the world. I'm going to Finland. I don't know if anybody wants to go with me, but I'm going to Finland because I want to go see some of the things that they are doing. All right, I'm bringing everybody in here with me, Sal. And Sal's going to pay for it. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the conference.